The shuttle descended through purple clouds toward the palace of eternal luminance. Dr. Amara Chen pressed her hand against the window and watched the massive structure grow larger. It looked like a mountain made of crystal and gold. She had dreamed of this moment for 15 years. "Nervous?" asked Captain Rodriguez from the pilot seat. "Excited," Amara replied. She was 42 years old and humanity's best hope for friendship with the Valthene Empire. The Valthene were ancient, powerful, and had finally agreed to meet with humans. Finally, Earth would have a strong ally among the stars. The palace landing bay was enormous. Hundreds of Valthene officials stood waiting, their tall bodies covered in flowing robes that shimmered like water. They watched the human shuttle with expressions that Amara could not read. Ambassador Talia Okonkwo stepped forward as the shuttle door opened. "Remember," she whispered to Amara, "they think we're children because we only live 100 years. They live for 800. Just stay professional." Amara nodded. She carried a data tablet containing agricultural research that could feed billions of Valthene citizens. Earth had developed techniques that grew food 3 times faster than traditional methods. It was humanity's gift to prove they were worthy partners. A Valthene official approached. His name was Counselor Vexmar, and he was 400 years old. To the Valthene, that made him middle-aged. "Welcome, human representatives," he said, his voice like wind through caves. "Crown Prince Zevrith will meet with you shortly." They walked through corridors filled with paintings and sculptures that were thousands of years old. Amara saw artwork that had existed before humans discovered fire. The weight of Valthene history pressed down on her with every step. "The prince is young," Vexmar explained, "only 24 years old, barely more than an infant by our standards, but the emperor wishes him to learn diplomacy." The way he said it suggested the Valthene did not consider humans important enough for senior officials. Amara pushed down her frustration. She would prove humanity's value through her work, not her words. The throne room was breathtaking. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds formed near the top. Hundreds of Valthene courtiers stood on balconies, watching the humans like people watch insects in a garden. At the center sat Crown Prince Zevrith on a smaller throne beside his father's empty seat. The prince was tall and elegant, with skin that glowed faintly blue. He wore robes decorated with symbols of his family line. His eyes studied the humans with obvious boredom. "Begin your presentation," he said without greeting them. Amara stepped forward and activated her tablet. A holographic display appeared, showing fields of golden grain. "Your Highness, humanity offers agricultural techniques that can increase Valthene food production by 300%. Our methods—" "How long did it take your people to develop this?" Prince Zevrith interrupted. 30 years of research, Your Highness." The courtiers laughed. It was a sound like breaking glass. 30 years, the prince repeated. "My people spend 30 years simply planning research projects. You rush through everything like insects building nests before winter comes." Amara kept her voice steady. "Our methods work, Your Highness. The data shows—" "Data," Zevrith said mockingly. He stood and walked down the steps toward her. The entire court watched in silence. "Tell me, Dr. Chen, how old are you?" 42, Your Highness." 42, he repeated slowly. "You have perhaps 50 years remaining if you are fortunate. Do you know how old my youngest tutor is? 370 years. He was studying advanced physics before your grandparents were born." Amara said nothing. Her hands remained steady on her tablet. The prince circled her like a predator. "Your entire species will be dust before I am even considered mature. You live such brief, desperate little lives, racing against time, always hurrying, never thinking deeply about anything." He returned to his throne. "Why should we waste our breath on creatures who will not even remember this conversation in their decrepit old age?" The silence in the throne room was complete. Prince Zevrith leaned forward, his young face filled with arrogant certainty. You are academic curiosities at best, amusing pets with delusions of significance. We will study you perhaps the way we study any short-lived species. But partners? Equals? He laughed, and the court laughed with him. How could we trust beings who barely exist long enough to understand consequences? Amara looked at the prince for a long moment. She thought about her grandfather, who had lived 93 years and taught mathematics to 3 generations of students. She thought about Commander Sarah Mitchell, who had piloted the first human ship to another star system at age 68. She thought about every human who had burned bright and brief and beautiful. Then she closed her tablet. The soft click echoed through the throne room. Dr. Chen? Ambassador Okonkwo whispered. Amara turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps were the only sound in the massive chamber. She did not run, she did not shout, she simply left. Behind her, Prince Zevrith frowned. Where is she going? I did not dismiss her. Ambassador Okonkwo looked at the prince with an expression he had never seen on a human face before. Not anger, but disappointment. You already did, Your Highness. You dismissed all of us. Then she followed Amara out. The entire human delegation walked out of the throne room in silence. Captain Rodriguez, the scientists, the trade representatives, all of them left without a word. Prince Zevrith stared at the empty doorway, confused. Councillor Vexmar approached the throne carefully. Your Highness, perhaps you should recall them. The Emperor will want— Let them go, Zevrith said, waving his hand. They will return. They need this alliance more than we do. But even as he spoke, the prince felt strange. He had expected tears, arguments, or begging. Instead, the humans had simply left. In the palace landing bay, Amara Chen boarded her shuttle. Captain Rodriguez, she said calmly, please contact all human personnel on this planet. Tell them we are leaving within the hour. All personnel? Rodriguez asked. That is 200 people. Scientists, trade representatives, everyone? Everyone, Amara confirmed. We were not invited here to be insulted. We were invited for partnership. Without respect, there can be no partnership. The shuttle engines powered up. Within minutes, every human vessel on Valthene Prime began preparations for departure. In the palace, Councillor Vexmar rushed into the throne room carrying a data tablet. His face showed something Prince Zevrith had never seen before on an adult Valthene. Panic. Your Highness, he said breathlessly, the humans are leaving, all of them. The Economic Council says— He stopped, trying to find words. We may have made a terrible mistake. Councillor Vexmar stood before the High Court, his hands shaking as he held the data tablet. Around him, 300 Valthene officials sat in their floating seats, waiting for an explanation. Prince Zevrith sat on his throne, still confident that the humans would return. Explain yourself, Counselor, the prince said. Why does it matter if the humans leave? There are dozens of species who would trade with us. Vexmar activated his tablet. Numbers and charts filled the air above them. Your Highness, I have been studying human development for the past 6 months. What I found terrifies me. The court murmured. Terrifies was a strong word. The Valthene rarely felt fear. Look at this timeline, Vexmar continued. The hologram showed Earth's history. Humans achieved powered flight 150 years ago. Within that same period, they went from flying wooden machines to traveling faster than light. 150 years, Your Highness. So they rush, Prince Zevrith said dismissively. We already know this. No, Your Highness. You misunderstand. Vexmar's voice grew stronger. Our people took 4,000 years to achieve the same progress. Humans develop technology 50 times faster than we do. Not because they are smarter, but because they have no choice. Every human scientist knows they will die soon. So they work with desperate intensity. They document everything. They teach their children quickly. They never stop innovating because they cannot afford to wait. The court fell silent. Several officials leaned forward, studying the data more carefully. Vexmar pulled up another chart. Medical technology. The humans have made more advances in regenerative medicine in 30 years than the Korthaxi collective achieved in 6 centuries. Energy production. Humans developed fusion power in 40 years. It took us 900. Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, biological engineering. In every field that requires rapid innovation, humans excel. But their work must be sloppy, an elderly counselor protested. Rushed research leads to mistakes. That is what we assumed, Vexmar replied. But their error rate is actually lower than ours. Because they know they have limited time, they build verification systems into everything. They peer review constantly. They test obsessively. They cannot afford mistakes, so they avoid them. Prince Zevrith shifted uncomfortably on his throne. Why does this matter? We are still more advanced overall. Are we? Vexmar asked quietly. Let me show you something else. He pulled up economic projections. If we had formed an alliance with humanity, their agricultural techniques would have increased our food production by 300%. That would have freed 40% of our population to pursue other fields: science, art, engineering. Within 200 years, the partnership would have made both civilizations twice as powerful. He paused, letting that sink in. Instead, we insulted them. And now the Zanari coalition has invited Dr. Chen to their homeworld. The same Dr. Chen who we called an amusing pet. The Zanari are not fools. They see what we missed. The court erupted in arguments. Some officials insisted that the Valthine could not apologize to a species that lived such brief lives. Others worried about economic consequences. Prince Zevrith sat frozen, watching the chaos he had created. Across the galaxy, news of the silent exit spread like fire. In the Korthaxi Collective's council chambers, Ambassador Thrix watched footage of the human delegation leaving Valthine Prime. They did not argue, she observed. They simply left. That shows discipline. Her colleague nodded. Perhaps we should review our own interactions with humanity. We also treated them as junior partners. Worse, Thrix admitted. We treated them as children who needed guidance, but children do not build interstellar civilizations in 200 years. On the merchant world of Pax Station, traders gathered to discuss the implications. A Grithian merchant named Kellox addressed the crowd. I have done business with humans for 5 years. I thought their short lifespans made them unreliable. But now I understand. It makes them incredibly reliable. They keep promises because they might not get another chance. They document everything because they must pass knowledge to the next generation. They work harder than any species I know because every day matters to them. The station's administrator, a wise Peltharian elder, added his thoughts. We long-lived species have a disease. We think we have infinite time, so we procrastinate. We delay decisions for decades. We study problems for centuries before acting. Humans do not have that luxury. They must act now, think now, innovate now. Perhaps that is not a weakness. Perhaps that is power. On Valthine Prime, Emperor Valthir finally returned from a diplomatic mission to another sector. When he heard what his son had done, his face became a mask of stone. He summoned Prince Zevrith to his private chambers, not the public throne room, but a small room where they could speak as father and son. Tell me what you said to the humans, the Emperor commanded. Zevrith repeated his words, though they sounded hollow now in his father's presence. The Emperor was silent for a long time. Then he spoke with deep sadness. You are 24 years old, my son. You have the arrogance of youth, which is forgivable. But you lack the wisdom that should temper it. That is my failure as your father. Father, I do not understand. No, you do not. The emperor walked to the window overlooking the palace gardens. There is a disease that afflicts long-lived species. We begin to believe that time itself has no value because we have so much of it. We stop innovating. We stop creating. We maintain, but do not advance. Do you know when our people last made a major scientific breakthrough? Zevrath thought about it. The gravity stabilizers? That was 800 years ago. 800 years, his father repeated. In that same period, humanity went from primitive agriculture to faster-than-light travel. They have not stopped advancing because they cannot afford to stop. Every generation must push forward, or they lose momentum. That urgency, that desperation you mocked, that is their greatest strength. The prince felt shame settling on him like a heavy cloak. What should I do, father? You should learn, the emperor said. I am sending you on a journey. You will travel to human space, disguised as a common trader. You will work among them. You will see what you mocked. Perhaps then you will understand. But father, I am crown prince. I cannot. You are my son who needs to grow up, the emperor interrupted. Until you return with wisdom, you are not ready to be crown prince of anything. Meanwhile, on Zenari Prime, Dr. Amara Chen sat in a beautiful garden meeting room. Representatives of the Zenari coalition surrounded her. 7 species who had always treated humans as equals despite their short lifespans. Dr. Chen, the Zenari chancellor said warmly, we are honored that you came to us. We have reviewed your agricultural proposals. They are brilliant. Thank you, Chancellor. We have a question, though. The Chancellor leaned forward. The Valthine insulted you terribly, yet you did not respond with anger. Why? Amara smiled slightly. Because anger would have proved them right. They think we are emotional, impulsive children. So I showed them something else. Dignity. Sometimes the most powerful response is silence and action. Wise, the Chancellor agreed. We would like to offer you more than just an agricultural partnership. We want human consultants in rapid development strategies. You see, we have a problem. Our civilizations are stable but stagnant. We need to learn how to innovate with urgency without losing our values. Can you teach us that? Amara looked around at the 7 species, all watching her with respect and hope. She thought about Prince Zevrath's mocking face, about the laughter in the throne room. Then she thought about humanity's gift, the ability to pack meaning into brief time. Yes, she said, we can teach you. And in return, perhaps you can teach us the patience and perspective that comes with longer lives. Real partnership goes both ways. The Zenari representatives smiled. Outside the window, their world continued its peaceful rotation. But across the galaxy, something had shifted. The brief-lived humans had shown that dignity and silence could shake empires. And in the Valthine Palace, a young prince prepared for a journey that would change his entire understanding of life, time, and what it meant to truly live. Lead scientist Marixa had not slept in 3 days. She stood before the Emperor's private council, her hands trembling as she held the research data. Around the sealed chamber sat only the most senior officials of the Valthine Empire. Prince Zevrath had not been invited. He was still too young, too reckless. Tell us, Emperor Valthir said quietly. How bad is it? Marixa activated the holographic display. The Valthine sun appeared above the table, rotating slowly. Red warnings pulsed around its core. Our star is entering an unstable phase. The magnetic fields are fluctuating in ways we have never observed. If this continues, the sun will emit radiation bursts that will destroy all life on our homeworld. The council members stared at the projection in horror. Councillor Vexmar spoke first. When will this happen? We have time to evacuate, surely. We can begin preparations. That is the problem. Merexa interrupted. It will happen in 40 human years. Silence filled the chamber. 40 human years, an elderly counselor repeated slowly. That is nothing. A brief moment. We barely notice such time passing. Exactly, Merexa said. Our computational models are designed for long-term solutions. We plan in centuries. Our scientists take decades just to analyze problems before proposing solutions. We have never faced a crisis that required rapid response. We do not know how. Emperor Valthier closed his eyes. And the humans? Human crisis response protocols are built for exactly this kind of timeline, Merexa explained. They plan in decades. They can mobilize entire civilizations in years. They innovate under pressure because pressure is all they have ever known. Their entire species exists in a state of controlled urgency. Vexmar made a sound of frustration. Then we need them. We must apologize and ask for their help. Apologize? An ancient counselor protested. We are the Valthine Empire. We have existed for 100,000 years. We cannot bow to mayflies. Then we will die with our pride intact, Merexa said sharply. Is that what you prefer? The debate lasted for hours. Some counselors argued they could solve the problem themselves. Others pointed out that 40 human years was barely enough time to train their own scientists in rapid response methodology, something humans learned as children. The Valthine had forgotten how to hurry because they had never needed to. Finally, Emperor Valthier raised his hand for silence. I will send an emissary to Dr. Chen, secretly. We will see if she will even speak with us after what my son said. On Zenari Prime, Dr. Amara Chen worked in a bright laboratory filled with plants from a dozen worlds. She was teaching Zenari scientists how human agricultural methods worked. The techniques were simple but required constant attention and adjustment, something that came naturally to humans, but was difficult for long-lived species to maintain. A Zenari assistant approached nervously. Dr. Chen, there is someone requesting to meet with you, privately. He says he is from the Valthine Empire. Amara's hands paused over the soil samples. Tell him I am busy. He says it is a matter of planetary survival. Amara looked up sharply. The assistant's face showed genuine worry. Very well, 5 minutes. The Valthine emissary was old, perhaps 600 years. His name was Teknir, and he had been a diplomat for 4 centuries. He bowed deeply when Amara entered the meeting room, a gesture of respect that Valthine rarely showed to other species. Dr. Chen, thank you for seeing me. You have 4 minutes left, Amara said, sitting down. Her face showed nothing. Teknir explained the crisis quickly. The unstable sun, the 40-year timeline, the desperate need for human expertise. As he spoke, Amara's expression shifted from cold distance to professional concern. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Tell me something, Ambassador Teknir. If a human child came to your people dying, would you help them even though Prince Zevrith insulted us? Of course, Teknir said immediately. A child is innocent. Your entire world is about to face death, Amara said. Are your children innocent? The millions of young Valthine who were not in that throne room, who did not laugh at us, do they deserve to die because one arrogant prince was cruel? Teknir's eyes widened. You would help us? I did not say that, Amara replied. I asked you a question about children. You have your answer. She stood. Return to your emperor. Tell him that Dr. Amara Chen will consider his request, but I will give my answer to Prince Zevrith personally. Not to you. Not to the emperor. To the young fool who called my species amusing pets. Teknir left confused and frightened. He did not know if the humans would help or not. Meanwhile, Prince Zevrath traveled through human space disguised in simple trader clothing. His father had stripped him of his royal symbols and given him false identification papers. He was to spend 6 months working on human colony worlds, learning what he had mocked. His first assignment was on a farming colony called New Manitoba. The settlement was only 30 years old, carved out of wilderness by human determination. Zevrath was assigned to work with an elderly woman named Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, who managed the agricultural research station. Dr. Okonkwo was 70 years old. Her hair was gray, her face lined with wrinkles, her hands spotted with age. To Zevrath, she seemed impossibly fragile, someone who would barely exist at all by Valthine standards. "You must be the new volunteer," she said, smiling warmly. "Welcome. Can you lift heavy equipment?" "Yes," Zevrath lied. He had never done physical labor in his life. The work was exhausting. Dr. Okonkwo moved through the greenhouse with surprising energy, checking plants, adjusting nutrient levels, recording data constantly. She worked 12-hour days without complaint. "Why do you work so hard?" Zevrath asked after the first week. "You are old. You could retire." Dr. Okonkwo laughed. "Old, I suppose I am. But I have maybe 30 good years left if I am lucky. 30 years to pass on everything I have learned to the next generation. There is no time to rest." Zevrath watched her train younger scientists with fierce dedication. She documented every technique, every observation, every lesson learned from decades of experience. She rushed to transfer knowledge because she knew her time was limited. One evening, Zevrath found her crying quietly in her office. He hesitated, then asked, "Dr. Okonkwo, are you well?" She wiped her eyes and smiled. "Yes, dear. Just feeling the weight of time." "So much to do. So little time to do it. I want to make sure the young ones know everything before I go." "Before you go where?" "Before I die," she said simply. "That is what we humans do. We die, and before we do, we try to make sure our knowledge survives us. It is our way." Zevrath felt something crack inside his chest. This old woman, who would be considered barely born by Valthine standards, carried such urgency and purpose. She feared her death not for herself, but because it meant she could not teach anymore. "Dr. Okonkwo," he said quietly, "you are not just old. You are magnificent." She laughed. "What a sweet thing to say. Come, help me with these seeds. These will grow into trees my great-grandchildren will climb. I will never see them fully grown, but that does not matter. What matters is planting them." Zevrath worked beside her, and for the first time in his life, he understood. Humans did not fear death. They raced it. Every human he met was running a marathon their entire lives, trying to accomplish as much as possible before time ran out. They lived with an intensity the Valthine had forgotten millions of years ago. After 3 months on human worlds, Zevrath received a message from his father. "Return home immediately. The humans have responded to our request." Zevrath boarded a ship back to Valthine Prime, his mind churning with everything he had witnessed. He was no longer the arrogant prince who had mocked mayflies. When he arrived at the palace, he found it in chaos. The sun's instability had accelerated. They now had only 15 human years left. And worse, the Zanari coalition had just announced that humanity would help them relocate their entire civilization if needed. The humans were demonstrating system-wide evacuation protocols that moved billions of people in mere decades. Every species in the galaxy watched humanity's capability with awe and respect. Everyone except the Valthine, who had insulted them. Counselor Vexmar met Zevrath at the landing bay. "Your Highness, Dr. Chen has agreed to meet with you. She will be here tomorrow. The Emperor believes she will help us, but she has conditions." "What conditions?" Zevrath asked. "She will only negotiate with you, Your Highness, the one who insulted her. She says you must understand what you mocked before she will trust us with her people's help." Zevrith nodded slowly. After 3 months among humans, he finally understood. Dr. Chen was not being cruel, she was being wise. She would not save the Valthine unless their future leaders truly understood the value of brief, bright lives. Tomorrow he would face the woman he had called an amusing pet, and he would beg her forgiveness. The throne room had been transformed. Instead of hundreds of courtiers watching from balconies, only a small group remained. Emperor Valthier, Counselor Vexmar, lead scientist Merixa, and Prince Zevrith. The massive chamber felt empty and cold. Dr. Amara Chen entered with quiet dignity. She wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Behind her walked 5 human scientists and engineers, each carrying data tablets. They did not bow. They did not show fear. They simply stood as equals. Prince Zevrith stepped forward. He had rehearsed this moment for days, but now the words caught in his throat. The woman before him was the same age as when he had insulted her, yet she seemed different, stronger, more certain, or perhaps he was the one who had changed. "Dr. Chen," he began, his voice shaking slightly, "I owe you an apology. What I said in this throne room was..." "True," Amara interrupted. "From your perspective, everything you said was true. We do live brief lives. We will be dust before you reach maturity. Those are facts." Zevrith blinked in confusion. "But I insulted you." "You did," Amara agreed. "But insults only wound when they come from those we respect. Your words hurt, because I had hoped for better from the Valthine Empire. I expected wisdom from a species that has lived so long. Instead, I found arrogance dressed in ancient robes." The Emperor winced, but said nothing. This was his son's responsibility. Zevrith felt shame burning through him. "I have spent 3 months living among your people, working beside them, learning from them. I watched a 70-year-old woman work 12-hour days because she feared she would not have time to pass on her knowledge. I saw engineers half my age accomplish in weeks what our people would take years to attempt. I finally understand what I mocked." "Do you?" Amara asked. "Tell me what you learned." Zevrith took a deep breath. "I learned that time is not measured in years lived but in meaning created. I learned that urgency is not a weakness but a strength. I learned that your people live more in 1 century than mine do in 8, because you understand that every moment matters." He paused. "I learned that I am the child, not you. Despite my species' longevity, I have the mind of an infant. You have the wisdom of someone who knows that life is precious because it ends." Amara's expression softened slightly. "Better, but understanding and respect are not the same thing. Do you respect us now, Prince Zevrith?" "Truly?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "I would be honored to work beside humanity, to learn from you, to be considered worthy of your friendship." Amara looked at her team. They nodded silently. They had already voted during the journey. She turned back to the Valthine prince. "Then we will help you. But there are conditions." Emperor Valthier stepped forward. "Name them. Anything." "First, Prince Zevrith will work directly with our engineering teams, not as royalty, but as an equal member. He will take orders from human team leaders, including those younger than him by your standards." "Can you accept that, Your Highness?" Zevrith nodded immediately. "Yes, I would be grateful for the opportunity." "Second," Amara continued, "this partnership must be real. When we save your son, you will acknowledge humanity's contribution publicly before the Galactic Council. You will tell every species in the galaxy that the mayflies possess value. No more subtle dismissals, no more quiet arrogance. Agreed?" The Emperor hesitated only a moment. "Agreed." "Third, you will establish a permanent cultural exchange program. Young Valthine will spend time living among humans. Young humans will learn from Valthine elders. We will teach each other. Both species will grow stronger together. Yes, the Emperor said. Gladly. Amara pulled out her data tablet. Then let us begin. Lead Scientist Merexa. Please present your data on the solar instability. The next hours were intense. Merexa explained the sun's magnetic field fluctuations in detail. The human engineers listened carefully, asking sharp questions that cut to the heart of each problem. Prince Zevrath watched in amazement as the humans processed information at incredible speed. Finally, the lead human engineer, a woman named Commander Lisa Park, stood up. We cannot stop the instability, but we can accelerate it safely, trigger a controlled burn-off that will stabilize the magnetic fields. It will require 300 synchronized installations across your solar system. 300? Merexa gasped. That would take us centuries to build. We have 15 years, Commander Park said calmly. It is possible, but we must start immediately. Every day we delay makes success less likely. Vexmar looked terrified. 15 years? That is insane. We cannot possibly— You cannot, Amara agreed. But humans specialize in impossible deadlines. We will need full access to your manufacturing facilities, your resource networks, and your workforce. Can you provide that? Yes, Emperor Valthier said firmly. Whatever you need. The work began the next day. Human engineers arrived by the dozens, then hundreds. They brought plans, techniques, and an energy that shocked the Valthine workers. Humans did not take 3 months to study problems. They analyzed for 3 days, and then started building. Prince Zevrath was assigned to Team 7, led by a human engineer named Maria Santos. She was 45 years old, efficient, and completely unimpressed by his royal title. You are Zevrath, she said on their first day. Not your highness, just Zevrath. On my team, everyone is equal. Can you handle that? Yes, team leader Santos, he replied. The work was brutal. 12-hour shifts became normal. Humans pushed themselves and their Valthine colleagues to maintain constant progress. But they also showed remarkable patience when teaching. Maria explained every technique, every decision, every shortcut. Why do you document everything so carefully? Zevrath asked after a month. It slows the work. Maria smiled. Because I will not live forever, Zevrath. Everything I know must be written down so the next generation can learn it. We always work as if we might die tomorrow. That way, our knowledge survives us. Years passed. The installations rose across the Valthine solar system like a network of steel flowers. Human and Valthine workers labored side by side. Zevrath grew close to his team, especially Maria, who treated him like a younger brother rather than a prince. One evening, after an exhausting 16-hour shift, Maria sat with Zevrath watching the sunset. I am 53 now, she said quietly. When this project started, I was 45. 8 years gone in the blink of an eye. You will see it completed, Zevrath assured her. We have 7 years remaining. Maybe, Maria said. But I have been thinking about retirement. I want to spend time with my daughter before I get too old. She is 20 now, growing up so fast. She smiled sadly. That is the human curse. We always want more time. Zevrath felt his chest tighten. Maria? You cannot leave. You are our best engineer. I am one engineer among hundreds, she corrected gently. The work will continue without me. That is the beauty of documentation. My knowledge lives on through my notes and through the young engineers I have trained, including you. Me? You have learned well, Zevrath. In 8 years you have become a fine engineer. You understand human methods now. You can lead teams yourself. But I am still young, Zevrath protested. I am only 32, barely more than a child by Valthine standards. Maria laughed. By human standards, 32 is an adult with experience and responsibility. Age is just a number. Competence is what matters. With 7 years remaining, disaster struck. 3 critical installations failed simultaneously. The Valthene engineers examined the wreckage and delivered devastating news. The technology had fundamental flaws. Rebuilding would take at least 10 years. "We do not have 10 years, Merexa said, her voice breaking. "We have 7. It is over." The human teams gathered in emergency session. Commander Park, now 58 years old with gray streaking her hair, stood before them. Prince Zevrith sat among the engineers, no longer a royal observer, but a true member of the team. 3 installations failed, Park said calmly. "We have 7 years to rebuild them using a completely new design. The Valthene engineers say it is impossible." The room fell silent. Park smiled. "Impossible just means we have not done it yet. I did not come billions of kilometers to fail now. Who is with me?" Every human hand rose. Then, slowly, Valthene hands rose as well. Zevrith stood. "Team Leader Park, I volunteer to lead one of the rebuilding teams. I have learned from the best. Let me prove humanity's lessons were not wasted." Park looked at the young prince, no longer arrogant, no longer dismissive, but humble and determined. "Team assignment approved. Let us show the galaxy what humans and Valthene can accomplish together." As the meeting ended, Zevrith felt something he had never experienced before. True purpose. Not the empty pride of royalty, but the solid satisfaction of meaningful work. He had 7 years to save his world. 7 brief, precious human years. And he would make every moment count. Part 5. Legacy of the Mayflies. 1,000 words, third-person style. The final year arrived like a storm on the horizon. 3 installation sites remained incomplete, and time was running out. The combined human Valthene teams worked without rest, their faces showing exhaustion and determination in equal measure. Prince Zevrith, now 39 years old, led Team 12 at the most difficult site near the sun's corona. His hands were calloused from physical labor, something no Valthene royal had experienced in 10,000 years. Beside him worked humans who had aged visibly over the project. Commander Park was now 65, her hair completely gray. Maria Santos had returned from retirement when the crisis deepened, unable to stay away when her friends needed her. 2 months left, Maria said quietly, checking the installation progress. "We are behind schedule." Zevrith looked at the data and felt fear grip his heart. "We will make it. We must." But privately, everyone knew the truth. The final installation required someone to enter the sun's corona and manually calibrate the magnetic stabilizers. The radiation levels would kill any biological being within hours. It was a suicide mission. Commander Park called a meeting of all team leaders. 60 people gathered, humans and Valthene together, their uniforms stained with work, their faces lined with worry. "We need a volunteer," Park said simply. "Someone must go into the corona to complete the final calibration. It is a one-way trip. I will not order anyone. It must be a choice." Silence filled the room. Zevrith saw humans and Valthene looking at each other, calculating, considering. Everyone understood what was being asked. Then Commander James Park, Lisa's older brother, age 68, stood up. "I volunteer." "James, no," Commander Lisa Park protested. "You have grandchildren. You were supposed to retire last year." "Exactly," James said calmly. "I have maybe 10 good years left if I am lucky. Your world has thousands of years ahead. That is mathematics I can accept." He looked around the room. "I have lived a full life. I have loved, built, created, and taught. I have no regrets. Let me do this final thing. Let me matter." Zevrith jumped to his feet. "Commander Park, I should go instead. I am Valthene. I caused this crisis with my arrogance. Let me fix it. James smiled gently at the young prince. Zevrith, you are 39 years old. You are still a child by your people's standards. You have 700 years ahead of you to lead your people wisely. I have 10 years to sit in a garden and grow old. Which life should the universe keep? But, no arguments, James said firmly. I made my choice the moment I understood what was needed. I am old, tired, and ready. You are young, capable, and necessary. Do not waste my sacrifice by arguing. The room fell silent. Even the Valthine, who had lived centuries, recognized the profound courage in this old human's decision. 3 weeks later, James Park entered the specially designed shuttle that would take him into the sun's corona. Zevrith stood at the launch bay with tears streaming down his face, something no Valthine had seen a royal do in living memory. Commander Park, Zevrith said, gripping the old man's hand. I do not have words. Then make it mean something, kid, James replied, smiling. Save your people. Teach them what you learned from us. Plant trees you will never sit under, just like we do. That is how you honor me. The shuttle launched. For 6 hours, James worked in the burning hell of the corona, his hands steady despite the pain. His voice came through the radio, calm and professional, calling out each calibration step. The humans and Valthine listened in awed silence. Final calibration complete, James said at last, his voice growing weak. The system is active. You can trigger the controlled burn whenever ready. Commander Park, Lisa's voice cracked over the radio. James, I know, little sister, James interrupted gently. Tell the kids their grandfather loved them. Tell everyone it was worth it. The radio went silent. Commander Lisa Park wiped her eyes and turned to the control panel. Activate the solar stabilization sequence. The sun blazed with brilliant light as 300 installations fired simultaneously. Magnetic fields aligned. Unstable energies channeled safely into space. The corona pulsed once, twice, then settled into a steady, healthy glow. The sun was saved. The control room erupted in cheers and tears. Humans and Valthine embraced, crying together. Zevrith collapsed into a chair, overwhelmed by relief and grief. An old human had given his last years so that young Valthine could have their thousands of years ahead. The Galactic Council meeting 3 months later was the largest gathering in recorded history. Representatives from 200 species watched as Emperor Valth-Ir approached the central platform. He was old now, even by Valthine standards, and he had chosen this moment to make his final address before retiring. But he did not speak first. Instead, he stepped aside and gestured for his son. Prince Zevrith walked to the platform. No longer a prince but crown emperor by his father's abdication. At age 40, he was still considered young, but his eyes held wisdom that transcended years. Honored representatives, Zevrith began, his voice carried across the galaxy by quantum broadcast. 10 years ago, I stood in my palace and called humanity amusing pets with delusions of significance. I mocked their brief lives. I laughed at their urgency. I was a fool. He paused, letting his words sink in. Humanity saved my world, not because we deserved it, but because they measure worth differently than we do. They do not count years. They count meaning. Commander James Park, age 68, gave his final years so that my people could have our thousands of years ahead. He did not hesitate. He did not demand payment. He simply acted, because that is what humans do. Zevrith pulled up a hologram showing human and Valthine workers side by side, exhausted but victorious. My people have lived for eons, but we forgot how to truly live. We became stagnant, slow, and arrogant. Humanity taught us that the length of your years matters less than the depth of your purpose. We called them mayflies. They showed us that even mayflies can shake palaces and save suns. The assembly was silent, transfixed. I propose a new era, Zevrith continued. Not one where long-lived species dominate and brief-lived species serve, but one where we learn from each other, where Valthine patience combines with human urgency, where ancient wisdom meets rapid innovation, where we judge each other not by how long we exist, but by what we accomplish while we are here. The Galactic Council voted unanimously to establish the Chen Park Institute, a galaxy-wide educational program where all species could learn from humanity's unique perspective on time, purpose, and legacy. 5 years later, Dr. Amara Chen stood in the Institute's main hall on Valthine Prime. She was 62 now, her hair showing silver. Beside her stood Crown Emperor Zevrith, now 45, finally reaching what Valthine considered adolescence. "Does it frighten you?" Zevrith asked quietly. "Having so little time left?" Amara smiled, watching young Valthine students learning from elderly human teachers. Every human lives with that awareness. But we also live with this truth. It is not about how long you burn. It is about what you illuminate. She gestured to the memorial statue of Commander James Park, standing in the garden outside. Your people will remember him for thousands of years. His life was brief, but his impact is eternal. That is the human way. We may be mayflies, but we make sure our light matters. Zevrith nodded slowly. I have implemented new requirements for all young Valthine. They must spend 5 years living among humans, learning urgency, learning purpose. We cannot afford to forget again. Good, Amara said. And human youth will spend time with Valthine elders, learning patience and long-term thinking. Both our species need what the other has. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the sunset. A sunset made possible because a brief-lived species understood that every moment counts. In the garden, a young Valthine child sat with an 89-year-old human grandmother. The child asked innocently, "Why do humans work so hard when you have so little time?" The grandmother smiled, her eyes twinkling with wisdom earned through decades of living. Because little time makes every moment precious, dear one. We may live only 100 years, but we live them fully. We love deeply, create constantly, and teach everyone who comes after us. That is our gift to the universe. What is a mayfly? The child asked. The grandmother laughed softly. A mayfly is a creature that lives only one day. But in that one day, it dances in the sunlight, it mates, it lays eggs for the next generation, and it experiences joy. Brief does not mean meaningless. Brief means every second matters. The child thought about this, then smiled. I want to be like a mayfly when I grow up. Then you have learned the most important lesson, the grandmother said, patting the child's hand. Not how long you live, but how well you live. That is what humanity taught your people. That is what will keep the galaxy strong. The sun set over Valthine Prime, stable and healthy, saved by the sacrifice of brief-lived beings who understood that legacy matters more than longevity. And across the galaxy, the word mayfly became a term of highest respect, a reminder that even the smallest, briefest lives could illuminate the darkness and shake the foundations of empires. The end Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.